Riley meets Clara, when friendship turns into lesbian love. Riley's hands were shaking as she stood outside the coffee shop, watching Clara through the rain-streaked window. 6 months ago they had been strangers. 3 months ago they had become best friends. And now, in this moment, Riley realized with terrifying clarity that somewhere along the way, friendship had transformed into something she had never allowed herself to feel before. Love, raw, consuming, impossible love for the woman who sat inside, completely unaware that Riley's entire world had shifted on its axis. If you believe in the courage it takes to love authentically, to embrace second chances at happiness, and to choose truth over fear, please like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to channel name for more stories that celebrate real love in all its forms. Your support means everything. Riley had moved to Portland 3 years ago, running from a life that had never quite fit. She had spent her 20s in a relationship with a man her family adored, playing the role everyone expected, suffocating under the weight of who she was supposed to be. When that relationship finally crumbled, she told everyone it was mutual, that they had simply grown apart. But the truth was more complicated. The truth was that Riley had never felt that spark everyone talked about, never felt her heart race when he touched her, never felt truly seen. She had convinced herself that maybe that kind of passion was just a myth, something invented by movies and romance novels. She had resigned herself to a life of comfortable numbness. Then came Clara. They met at a community art class, both attempting and failing spectacularly at pottery. Clara had laughed when her bowl collapsed into a misshapen lump, her joy so genuine and infectious that Riley found herself laughing too, really laughing for the first time in months. They went for coffee afterward, and what was supposed to be a quick drink turned into 4 hours of conversation that felt like coming home. Clara was a freelance photographer with wild curly hair she never bothered to tame, eyes that crinkled when she smiled, and a way of looking at the world that made everything seem more vibrant, more possible. She had recently ended a long-term relationship with a woman, and she spoke about it with such honesty, such openness, that Riley felt both envious and terrified of that kind of authenticity. Their friendship developed quickly, intensely. Weekend brunches became daily text conversations. Casual coffee meetups evolved into long walks through Forest Park, gallery visits, late-night phone calls where they talked about everything and nothing. Clara introduced Riley to her group of queer friends, and for the first time, Riley found herself in spaces where love existed in so many different forms, where women loved women openly, proudly. She told herself she was just being a good ally, just supporting her friend. But something was shifting inside her, something she was desperately trying not to name. The moment everything changed came on an ordinary Tuesday evening. They were at Clara's apartment, sprawled on the couch watching a documentary, a bowl of popcorn between them. Clara laughed at something on screen and unconsciously placed her hand on Riley's knee, a casual gesture of affection they had shared countless times before. But this time Riley felt electricity shoot through her entire body. Her breath caught. Her skin burned where Clara touched her. And suddenly, with devastating clarity, she understood. This was what she had been missing her entire life. This feeling, this wanting, this aliveness. She was in love with Clara, and it terrified her more than anything ever had. Riley began pulling away, making excuses to avoid their usual hangouts, responding to texts with increasing brevity. She told herself she was protecting their friendship, protecting Clara from her confusion. But mostly she was protecting herself from a truth she wasn't ready to face. She was 32 years old, and she was just now realizing that everything she had believed about herself might be wrong. The fear was paralyzing. What would her family think? What would her old friends say? Had she wasted years of her life living a lie? And the most terrifying question of all, what if Clara didn't feel the same way? What if confessing her feelings destroyed the most important relationship she had ever had? Clara noticed the distance immediately. She sent concerned messages, showed up at Riley's door with takeout and worried eyes, asked if she had done something wrong. Riley hated herself for causing that hurt, for making Clara doubt herself, but she couldn't find the words to explain what was happening inside her. How could she tell Clara that she was falling apart because she had finally discovered who she really was, and it was beautiful and terrifying all at once? How could she risk losing the one person who made her feel truly alive? The breaking point came on a rainy Saturday night. Clara called, her voice thick with tears, saying she couldn't do this anymore. Couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when, clearly, Riley was pushing her away. She said she missed her best friend, missed the connection they had shared, and if Riley wanted to end their friendship, she needed to just say so instead of this slow, painful fade. The anguish in Clara's voice shattered something inside. Riley, she was so busy, protecting herself, that she was hurting the person she loved most in the world. Riley found herself driving to Clara's apartment through the downpour, her heart hammering against her ribs. No plan except the desperate need to make things right. She stood outside the coffee shop across from Clara's building, watching her through the window, gathering the courage to cross that final threshold. Clara sat alone at a corner table, staring into a cup of tea, and she looked so sad, so lost, that Riley felt her resolve crystallize. She loved this woman. She loved her with an intensity that made her previous relationship feel like a faded photograph, and Clara deserved the truth. Deserved more than Riley's cowardice, regardless of what happened next. Riley pushed through the coffee shop door, water dripping from her coat, her hair plastered to her face. Clara looked up, surprise and hope and hurt all flickering across her features. Riley didn't let herself think, didn't let herself retreat back into fear. She walked to Clara's table and the words tumbled out, raw and unpolished and true. She told Clara everything. That she had spent her whole life feeling disconnected from herself, going through the motions of what she thought her life should be. That their friendship had awakened something in her, something she had never let herself acknowledge. That she was terrified and confused and probably making a complete fool of herself. But she couldn't keep lying anymore. Not to Clara, not to herself. She told Clara that she was in love with her, that she understood if that changed everything, if it made things weird or impossible. But she needed Clara to know the truth because hiding it was killing her. The silence that followed felt eternal. Riley stood there, vulnerable and exposed, watching Clara process her words. Then Clara stood up, tears streaming down her face, and the expression on her face was not pity or discomfort, but wonder. She told Riley that she had been hoping, that she had felt the connection between them shifting into something deeper, something electric, but she had been afraid to push because she knew Riley was still figuring herself out. She told Riley that she had been falling for her too, had been dying during these past weeks of distance. Terrified that she had imagined the chemistry between them, she reached out and took Riley's trembling hands in hers, and the touch was everything Riley had been craving without knowing how to name it. They stood there in the coffee shop, oblivious to the other customers, hands clasped, tears and rain mingling on both their faces. Clara whispered that they could take this slowly, that there was no rush, that Riley was just beginning to understand this part of herself and they could figure it out together. But Riley shook her head, and for the first time in her life, she let herself be brave. She leaned in and kissed Clara, tentative and gentle and absolutely certain. The world didn't end. Lightning didn't strike. Instead, everything finally made sense. The weeks that followed were not without challenges. Riley had to have difficult conversations with her family, had to untangle years of assumptions about who she was and who she was, supposed to be. Some people understood, some people struggled, and some people she realized she was better off without. But through it all, Clara was there, patient and steady, reminding Riley that her journey was her own, that there was no timeline for self-discovery, no right way to come into your truth. Their relationship grew slowly, built on the foundation of friendship they had already established, deepened by the authenticity they both brought to it. Riley learned that love was supposed to feel like this, like coming alive. Like every color was brighter and every breath was deeper. She learned that she had never been broken or defective, just living a life that wasn't truly hers. And she learned that the bravest thing she would ever do was not. The moment she confessed her feelings to Clara, but every single day after, when she chose to live authentically, to love openly, to take up space in the world as her full self. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own journey or gave you hope for the courage to live your truth, please show your support by liking this video, leaving a comment about what this story meant to you, and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it today. Your engagement helps stories like Riley and Clara's reach more people who need them. 6 months after that rainy night in the coffee shop, Riley and Clara were planning a trip to meet Riley's parents together. Officially openly, Riley was still nervous, still learning to navigate this new identity, but she was no longer afraid, because she had learned that pretending to be someone you're not is a far lonelier existence than risking rejection for being yourself. She had learned that the right people will love you for who you really are, not who you pretend to be. And she had learned that sometimes the person who changes your entire life is standing right in front of you, waiting for you to be brave enough to see them clearly. Please drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on Riley and Clara's journey, or tell us about a time when you found the courage to embrace your authentic self. As Riley held Clara's hand, watching the sunset paint the Portland sky in shades of gold and pink, she thought about the woman she used to be, the woman who had settled for numbness because she didn't know passion was possible. She thought about how close she had come to losing this, to letting fear win, and she felt nothing but gratitude for the courage to take that leap, for the chance to build a life that was true, and for the extraordinary gift of loving someone who saw her completely and loved her not in spite of who she was, but because of it. Love, Riley had discovered, was not about finding someone to complete you, but finding someone who inspired you to become more fully yourself. And in Clara, she had found exactly that.